Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Wednesday, January 9th, 2013, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com and on YouTube, ddarko2012. So I'm ready to begin, and in this video I'm going to cover drones, everything about drones and some new weapons that the militaries are using. And in the second video I'll go into transhumanism, cyborgs, and because I just have a lot of interesting news that's been stacking up, and especially it's been coming through kind of like in waves or in patterns of news cycles. So the first one I have, of course, is something I didn't have time to cover on Monday or Tuesday, which is you had, of course, Chuck Hagel nominated and appointed officially by Obama as the Secretary of Defense. And you have Brennan, of course, for the CIA and the drone strikes. So that makes sense because he was the one that headed up the drone strikes. It says here that these nominations reflect more of the same old Obama foreign policy. And I also saw something today in the news saying that, from McClatchy, mainstream news, saying that there wasn't going to be much change in policy in the Obama administration or regime. A reluctance to get involved in conventional ground wars and a penchant for secret, uncontrollable wars. So that makes sense because I've talked about this before. This is where the super soldiers come into play and stuff like that, and using robots and drones because, you know, this is the new conventional war, which is not the big troops on the ground. I think Iraq was probably the last war like that. Even Afghanistan, it was never really the same as Iraq. But it was the same in that there was no point. They weren't never going to win the war on terror. It was just basically to occupy, get a regime that they wanted in there, train their police forces. And in fact, most of the police forces that they're training right now are they're training, especially like in Iraq, they have their own special forces. So everything is about special forces, limited amounts of numbers and boots on the ground, aided by technology. And I've mentioned this before from my reasoning, which is most of the countries, most of the sovereign nations have been conquered already. They've already had the regime changes. People think that they've gotten democracy. They really just got sucked into the global government and given up their sovereignty. So these special forces are usually for these proxy type states like Somalia or Afghanistan and other places like Yemen, where they've engineered the instability. They haven't got the results they wanted yet, so they just want to, like in Libya as well, maintain a light force that can go in there and scoop ambassadors out in that. Hagel gained a reputation in the pre-nomination debate as someone who is reluctant to send ground troops into new theaters of conflict, especially in the Middle East. People exaggerated his views and tried to describe him as a non-interventionist, but his views more closely aligned with Obama as far as engaging in conventional conflicts. And of course, you have Brennan, an unsurprising fact considering he shaped much of Obama's counterterrorism policies like the drone war itself. And McClatchy, this senior fellow at Center for American Progress, that's the progress for the global elites and that, the globalists, and says what's going to happen is no more counterinsurgency, it will be counterterrorism. And there's actually a Bureau of Counterterrorism. I don't think most people know that in the United States. And says here, a director of the Center for Middle Eastern Studies at Rutgers says, quote, the kill list and the war from above seems to be the way the Obama administration handles the war on terror, unquote. John Brennan is behind the program that has carried out over 300 remote strikes against terrorist targets, killing some 2,500 people. They're only remote in that they have people, pilots, piloting these drones, but now they're unleashing the autonomous drones, which are going to fly by themselves. In fact, what I'll be getting to here at the end, this X-37 is actually an autonomous aircraft drone. And it was up there for like, I think, 20 days, 20 plus days? Because you don't really want humans anymore for carrying out these wars. Because as things become more apparent, what they're doing, global domination and that for resources and political control, social control, economic control of everything, and they start looking off planet, they're going to have a lot of unrest down here. So they can't really trust soldiers to carry it out. They need machines to do it who don't ask questions. So it says here, drawn fire from, forget that, right? This politics crap. He's criticized for wrongly stating bin Laden was armed and had used his wife as a human shield in a briefing. I see a bunch more bullshit. So here's actually a picture of them here announcing a nomination. Kind of weird how he's just like, it's like a little pyramid or something like that. You got Hagel and Brennan to the right, and you got the old people, I guess, Leon Panetta, who's Secretary of Defense, who used to be the director of the CIA. So they kind of go back and forth. I believe Hagel actually worked in the intelligence community under Bush the First. And then you have John Brennan, top Obama aide, says drone strikes are illegal and ethical. This is what he said. This is back in April of 2012. The counterterrorism advisor defended drone strikes on Monday as legal and ethical weapons to use against al-Qaeda, which of course is the globalists' own private mercenary group of extremists. They're pawns, political pawns, and fighters, mercenaries. I'm here today because President Obama has instructed us to be more open with the American people about these efforts, referring to drone strikes. The U.S. demands judge dismiss lawsuits against assassination of citizens. This is from December 6th of last year. The Obama regime has demanded that a federal judge throw out a lawsuit relating to the assassination of 3 U.S. citizens, and Obama ordered drone strikes, saying that questions about overseas kill list are beyond the purview of the court system, and that it is inappropriate to question the president in this regard. So the demand comes with a threat to declare the entire issue of the killings or targeted killings a state secret if the judge doesn't dismiss the lawsuit out of hand, which would make the case, as a practical matter, virtually impossible. So something that's interesting I found, I wasn't going to include this, but I'll include it now, from the 4th of January. U.S.-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki purchased tickets for 9/11 terrorists, FBI documents say. Within 2 weeks of the terrorist attacks at 9/11, which of course were carried out by Israel and the Zionists, FBI investigators had information that the New Mexico-born jihadi cleric had purchased air travel tickets for some of the hijackers. The information is contained in newly released and heavily redacted FBI documents. It appears after the 9/11 attacks, the FBI, rather than arrest him, tried to work with him or track him for intelligence purposes to see whether he would lead the agency to sleeping cell terrorists in the United States. He was killed in a CIA drone attack in Yemen in September 2011. That's right, the families were trying to sue them, the U.S. government, for killing him. And this is what set the precedence for killing Americans by drone strikes. Okay, then we have Obama advisor who had decried war on terror, now defends drones. This Harold Hongju Ko has become a symbol of national security policies that many feel are not significantly different than those of the Bush regime that he once criticized. So that's what's so crazy, is that there's a lot of Democrats and liberals or progressives that are completely silent now under what's going on with Obama than the Bush regime. So Obama regime allowed to remain silent over drone program from the 3rd of January 2013. They do not have to disclose the legal basis for its drone target killing program of Americans, according to a decision made on the 2nd of January, a judge likened to Alice in Wonderland. That's interesting. So ruling in a lawsuit brought by the ACLU, which of course controlled opposition, and the New York Times, which again is a Zionist-run rag, said she would be caught, she was caught in a paradoxical situation of allowing the regime to claim it was legal to kill enemies outside traditional combat zones while keeping the legal rationale secret. And just like everything else, they pull out the terrorism card. In the end, however, the government's claim of national security trumped the Freedom of Information Act. On the 5th of January, rapid ramp-up of U.S. drone war in Yemen. Just recently, the U.S. just funneled some more weapons to Yemen. And you have what Yemenis were likely thankful that the buzz of the U.S. Predator and Reaper drones died down. Thanksgiving is over, however, and the fireworks for the New Year's Eve were more like Hellfire missiles than bottle rockets. It says on the 3rd of January, a drone reportedly operated remotely by agents of the CIA fired missiles at the vehicle traveling in the town of Rada in the Yemen province. Said the Yemeni officials, quoted by AFP, reported that this Abab and 2 underlings were killed in the strike. So, says those same officials identified him as a senior al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula. I remember seeing that. And the links will be posted in YouTube's video description. The article basically goes in and ties it in with al-Awlaki, who was just talking about, where basically he was killed by a drone attack on the command of the president on September 30th, 2011. So, and they call them, of course, militants, which could be any person of fighting age between 18 and 25 or 40, whatever it is. Basically, any young men. So, when U.S. drones, and of course, if they kill women and children, it's collateral damage, and oops, it was a mistake. When U.S. drones kill civilians, Yemen's government tries to conceal it. So that's what they're saying. I mean, it's a nice little feature article, so I'm going to skip that, but just so you know the title there before I move on. Yemen's government tries to conceal it when U.S. drones kill their civilians. Yemen says U.S. drone strikes to continue. They insist that 9/11 obligates Yemen to allow friendly aircraft. pretty interesting here. But the Yemeni National Security announced that it intends to allow U.S. drone strikes nationwide going forward, insisting that the alliance Yemen enjoyed after 9/11 obligates them to permit friendly aircraft to operate in their nation. Friendly aircraft. That's interesting. As U.S. drone strikes jumped more than threefold in 2012, and officials continue to point to the further escalation of those attacks, despite growing public anger at the civilian death toll and the fear of backlash. And I actually have an article that I also have that says basically, actually there was multiple articles coming to drawing the same conclusion, which was that these drone strikes actually embolden and recruit more Al-Qaeda fighters. So, but it makes sense because the war on terror will never actually end, right? I realized that back when I was still in the Marine Corps and I still had that conditioning programming inside me. And, I saw it for what it was with Iraq. It wasn't about WMDs. And I also realized that, the war on terror, the way they fight it and all that, it's never going to end. Especially when the terrorists themselves, these Al-Qaeda groups, doesn't technically exist. It's not that organized. It's basically steered by intelligence agencies. In 4 drone strikes in a single day, U.S. kills up to 25. A study by Obama's former counterterrorism aide finds civilian deaths have been misrepresented. This was on Tuesday. It says, as usual, all these casualties were claimed to be militants, but a recent study by Obama's former counterterrorism advisors concluded the regime has been successful in spinning the number of civilian casualties downward by counting all military-age males they kill as combatants. So they say that the numbers of casualties are likely to be far higher than acknowledged, says this Michael Boyle from Chatham House Journal. Again, another controlled opposition. The consequences can be seen in the targeting of mosque and funeral processions that kill non-combatants and tear the social fabric of regions where they occur. So actually that's what the Western hired, or globalized, hired Al-Qaeda terrorist force is doing in Syria. They're blowing up mosques and Christian churches. They're targeting Christians. They're targeting anybody that's not Sunnis. So we have here, U.S. declares war on ordinary Pakistani citizens. Says here that now we don't even have to hear the word Al-Qaeda, but still the war against terror is going on. This is actually a U.S. air war against the citizens of Pakistan in violation of the sovereignty of Pakistan. So of course they have sellouts there, just like they do in other countries. They get a lot of money for it. I mean, there's a big business like cancer. It's a big business, the war on terror. So they get a lot of money for saying, oh yeah, you can do the drone strikes. Just give us your billions of aid, security aid packages. 40 drone hits claimed 255 lives in northwest Afghanistan in 2012. 255 lives were lost in 40 strikes by the CIA-operated drones, while 54 people sustained injuries in various parts of North Waziristan in 2012. Along with local militants, which were probably civilians, innocent tribal people, including women and children, were also killed in these attacks. 2 former U.S. officials criticized Obama's counterproductive drone war. Obama has been ruthless and indifferent to the rule of law, according to his former counterterrorism advisor. Especially in Pakistan and Yemen, they say they disproportionately kill civilians and generate anti-American sentiments that aid Al-Qaeda recruitment efforts. Remember, what was it, like out of every terrorist that's killed, I think they kill like 26 innocent bystanders, so that makes sense. Then you have the UN wants to use drones for peacekeeping missions. Remember, humanitarian, that's how it always starts. Which is why you're seeing the propaganda about places in Pakistan and in Yemen and stuff like that. Because these groups, these entities, these demonic entities, really, they're just freaking evil. They actually create the humanitarian crisis, and then they go in there to quote, fix it, which is to blow up more innocent people. This is kind of scary, though, because the UN was just talking about how they actually want to bolster up their military force as well. So, of course, they will be used in the recolonization of Africa and the raping of their resources as well. Homeland Security is quietly running a loan-a-drone program for local law enforcement. Yeah, actually, it actually ties into this. It says that DHS loaned one of its unmanned vehicles to police in North Dakota in order to spy on a farmer. That's right, he was the first American that was arrested based on evidence collected from a drone. So it's just another precedent set. Then we have a Missouri lawmaker wants drone use to require a warrant. Okay, you're asking your slave masters to not be so harsh on you, right? You're going to the source of the problem. It's like the same thing. If I want fluoride, I want American, not Chinese fluoride. If I want drones, I want American-made drones, damn it. Unmanned military planes fly over Hampton Roads in Virginia Beach, but fewer residents seem to know about them. That's because they don't know. They don't even see chemtrails, right? So we'll leave off here. I only have a few more articles left with this. But guess what? Ooh, they were training, actually, with the Special Operation Forces. Go figure, guys. This is GGN. Thank you.